Yeah, good to see you as well. So, welcome to the Empty Cup podcast. We're going to forego the introduction. We're just going to jump right into it here. Jason, back. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. It's good to be here. It's good to be here. Missed you.
Yeah, it's good to be back. I have not done a program this month yet, so
Well,
this will be the first.
Christmas is coming.
Yeah, ready or not, right? Are you ready or no?
Um, if by that do you mean have I gotten the presents for the most important people? Yes. Yes. So I'm on record.
All right, awesome. So I wanted to do a program that had you on and Taylor Kelly because you guys have both been on my program 3 times. And did you
I'm
get to
ahead of them
see?
now.
Yeah, did you get to see I told him, I texted him, I said, hey, I'm going to have Jason on the program. If you want to join, you're welcome to join. So
Mhm.
I don't know if he will or not, but
Yeah.
he's a good friend of mine too. And anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about the reaction video to your video on JKD and MMA and go over
Yeah.
that a little bit. I was a little bit rusty because it's been a while since I viewed both of those,
Well,
and I
mine
guess
was brilliant. Mine was brilliant, just to remind you.
yeah, yeah. I as I recall, they were both interesting, and I wish that Taylor would have. Well, you made a great analogy in there. You made a great analogy about the difference between a firefighter and a police
Mhm.
officer. Basically
Mhm.
saying that MMA and JKD, it's like the difference between a firefighter and a police officer, and I thought that was really good. And I thought that was a really good analogy. It's a different art. Uh,
Mhm.
I'm trying to think if there was something in there that I watched that I disagreed with. And I remember when I watched it, I thought, well, I'd like him to clarify on a couple of things, but I can't really remember exactly what it was. It's been a while now.
Well,
And in
he.
cyber years, it's been like a day is like 10 days,
Yeah.
right?
Oh
In
yeah. Oh
cyber
yeah.
years and
I
7 days.
don't remember what I did Monday, so
Yeah. So it's been a
I don't remember
while.
what I said Monday.
Right. Do you remember what you said on the video though? Or
No, I do because I say it every day. I mean, so it, if you poke me, this stuff pops out.
right.
He, if I remember, you sent me the link. I was, I was unaware of what was going on. I mean, I'm here in my little cocoon doing
Yeah.
my thing, and when I get wind of things, other people come and tell me, and so I got wind of the video, the response video from you, of course. And so I watched it, and I remember him saying that, and the big objection was to my comment that the mindset of a Jeet Kune Do fighter or a self defender
Hmm.
and an MMA fighter, they were antithetical, and he took issue with that. He said, because I was saying the aggression that one needed to be an MMA fighter was, not applicable to a self-defender, and it would probably get you in trouble. It could get you thrown in jail.
Right.
He said, he responds, "Are you kidding? If someone's raping my wife, I'm not gonna be aggressive." Um, so my response to that was, or is rather, because this is the first time I've had a chance to talk to you, is that yeah, I don't think that you're defining a fight the right way. I mean, if you have a legal right, a moral right to use deadly force, and in that case, protecting someone or yourself from death, grave bodily injury, or sexual assault is in most states. I don't know about California, but
Right.
it's okay to use lethal force.
They might
So,
just let you
am,
go.
yeah, I mean, am I what's going on? I mean, I think the definition of a self-defender and a sport fighter is blurred there. Because what am I doing?
Yeah.
Am I walking down the road with my wife and some rapist jumps out and says raping her on the sidewalk? I mean, how is that going to
Right.
happen?
Well,
You're
let
talking
me
somebody's
let me
in your
say
in.
this. Let me say a couple preliminary things because
Yeah.
we did this impromptu. Like I didn't have any plan. We hadn't been setting this up for a while, and
Hmm.
Taylor's a friend of mine too, and I wanted him to know. I sent him a link. I said, if you want to join the show, you're welcome to join the show. he
Come
might
on
not be
in.
able to. He's really a busy guy, and so
I'm
I
not.
understand if he can't. Yeah, I understand if he can't jump in right now or whatever.
Right.
But I just
Right.
wanted to let him know that he's welcome to,
Yeah.
or he's welcome to come on the show and do a response to the response. It's always good. I'd love to have both of you on the
Sure.
show at the same time. And I honestly believe that that if you guys, because I talked to both of you extensively, and I honestly believe that you guys have way more in common than probably would come about as a result of just a video or something like that.
Mhm.
So anyway, so I just kind of wanted to say that first, just to let everybody know that I wasn't. Whoa, what's that?
So, so to start a fight? No, just kidding.
No,
That's my phone. Sorry
uh,
about that.
no, it's okay.
No problem. No problem. No.
No, but I did wish that he had watched the whole thing, because I thought that one
Mhm.
of the things that this is what you weren't saying, and I know this is what you weren't saying. You weren't saying that MMA isn't good. That's not what you're saying. MMA is great. It's just not the same as JKD, and they have different application.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Right. And you know, it's I have another video out where I got, I mean, it's remarkable that everyone jumps to the defense of their beloved, you know, my precious.
Yeah,
And I try to be as even-handed and as objective as possible in that we're all trying to look at reality. And in some cases, we're all like virgins trying to teach sex ed, you know, because we're all putting ourselves in scenarios that we haven't been in ourselves. And so, you know, like, all right,
you have the
a
best analogies,
self-defender.
Jason. You have the best analogies. Seriously, we're all like virgins trying to teach sex ed.
Yes,
Seriously, your
you
analogies
can quote me.
are just genius. All right, so go ahead.
So,
Sorry, keep going.
So, but you know, I'm like, you know, because you and I have talked, and I've been really critical of Wing Chun people and Jeet Kune Do people for not cross training with boxers and MMA fighters for a long
Right.
time, and that's certainly heightened my skill. But to not notice the differences between the two, you know, that if as a self defender, I have a moral and legal responsibility to try to disengage from danger so that I don't end up in a fight. And
Mm-hmm.
if I don't do that, I think before God that I'm culpable and I'm responsible for any damage I do. If in fact
Right.
I engage in a confrontation that there wasn't a real threat. Like one of my instructors told me years ago when I asked him, "How do I know it's right to fight?" And he said, "When you know you'll lose."
Huh.
If you can ask
Yeah.
yourself that,
Yeah.
if you know you're going to lose this fight badly and you fight anyway, it was thrust upon you. And so much of us, and you see it on YouTube, everybody bickering about who'd have won in a fight. Bruce Lee, how would Bruce Lee have done against such and such and such and such? And it's all ego and pride.
Right.
And
Right.
so, yeah, I was just simply differentiating between the mindset of a self-defender who is trying to get away, trying to disengage from a threat, and is, of course, using different targets and can do different things than a sport fighter can. And how a
Mm-hmm.
sport fighter has to be very careful with their level of aggression.
Mm-hmm.
As an old boxer myself, old, as a former boxer myself, I'll tell you that my level of aggression of wanting to
Uh-huh.
prove myself and wanting to step in there and test myself, despite the fear, right? Is not necessarily a good thing for dealing with my daily life. You have to keep that checked, and that's the difference between a self-defender and a prize fighter, of which an MMA fighter is. So yeah, it wasn't an attack on MMA. It was simply a case to say that if you get into an altercation and you're not aware of the legal and moral ramifications of what you're doing,
Right.
then you're setting yourself up tactically for a problem, and you're setting yourself up certainly legally for a problem. So yeah, it wasn't an attack
Right.
on MMA. But as you said, I made a video where I was saying that Wing Chun isn't working in a lot of environments today because the Wing Chun fighters are making, they're doing Frankenshun. They've got their
Right.
hands in front of them and they're marching at guys who are throwing punches from angles and they're getting knocked out. And so I get hammered from online, the vibes out there are like, oh, you don't know Wing Chun. Nobody refuted my point that running into punches is a bad idea. But they took it
Yeah.
as a knock on Wing Chun. They thought all they heard was I said that in certain cases Wing Chun won't work. And I think the same thing happened when I said Jeet Kune Do is different from MMA. They heard it
Hmm.
as Jeet Kune Do is better than MMA. I didn't say that. I simply
Right.
said, where are you? What are you doing? You know, like a hand grenade is a great weapon, but it's not a great weapon for me to use in, like, say, my bathtub in a grappling match.
Right.
I'll get rid
Right.
of the threat, but I've got another problem. A bazooka is a fine weapon, but it's not a good self-defense weapon for home defense. You know, I'll take care of the bad guy. I'll probably take care of my dog and my neighbor's dog
Yeah.
and my neighbor's dog. You know, that's the overkill. So, you know, yeah, you look at, and I'll say something politically incorrect. Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman. Remember that fight? And George
Yeah.
Zimmerman shot and killed Trayvon Martin. And and politically, the way we are in the country, everyone's, you know, divided. Um, they missed the critical element is that George Zimmerman was told by the 911 dispatch to stay in his car, right? But he gets
Yeah.
out. So he's presenting himself for danger.
Yeah.
And then he gets into an altercation. Now, my take on it is probably Trayvon walked over and said, "What are you looking at? What are you, you know?" And he punches him. But Trayvon was an MMA fighter.
Hmm.
And then Trayvon got into a ground and pound situation, which at that point, Zimmerman was, as we know from legally, he said he was in fear of his life, so he shot him.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that's what I mean in terms of you got to know who you are, and you got to know what your tactics are, and some things that you could do in MMA
Right.
in a cage would not translate very well for a street altercation. And I can say the same thing about any martial art. Master Ken with the kick the guy, stomp the groin.
Yeah.
you
Right.
know,
Right. Right.
when the guy goes down, if you hit a downed opponent on the ground, he's laying on
Uh-huh.
asphalt, and you kick him in the head or something, you could be guilty of murder, even if he started the fight.
Yeah. Right. Right.
So yeah, but anyway, so that was my point. Is yeah, clearly I wasn't saying MMA is. I've got MMA guys at my gym, and
Yeah.
I train them, and
Right.
so I thought
And
that
this
was
is
pretty
something
funny.
that's very close to me because I've been training, at an MMA gym for a number of years now,
Mm-hmm.
for at least 2 years. And of course, as soon as there's been videos that I've thought about putting up, like the difference between the jab and the straight lead. I haven't put that one
Yeah,
up yet, but as soon as I do
yeah,
that,
big
I
one.
know I know that I'm going to get the flood of people saying, "Well, you really don't know what a jab is," and then some other
Oh
flood of people
yeah,
saying, "You really don't know what a straight lead is." And I'm
right.
like, "Well, maybe I don't. Maybe I don't understand
But
what it
but
is."
at least I would
But
ask people that pretend they pretend to be martial artists.
yeah,
Okay, and let's say you are. Let's say we're talking to you, and you're one of the guys that gets on YouTube and says you don't know what you're talking about. To say that, it's then incumbent upon you, if you're going to have a rational conversation with honor, to say no, I disagree with your point, and here's why.
uh-huh.
And so I mean I try and do that. I don't think in any of my videos I take cheap shots at somebody.
Mhm.
And you know, and it's rather ironic to me that even in like the Wing Chun video I just did, a rather well-known Wing Chun instructor took talking about, and the guy was then contradicted by people who said, actually, Jason knows Wing Chun,
Right, right.
and
Yeah.
and they were like, oh well, then he backed away. He goes, well, he had some good points, but I didn't like the way he made the points.
Yeah,
You're
right.
supposed to be a martial arts master. You're supposed to be teaching people about honor and character and that kind of thing. And so when you do, you put something out, and it's in the spirit of saying, hey, here's the difference between this and this.
Uh-huh.
And you got a lot of people who, unfortunately, and I try to check my own premises, make sure I'm not doing this, that look at something that you may be presenting a limitation of a particular tool, weapon, tactic, style, what have you.
Uh-huh.
And people can get, they look at that as an attack on their wife. Like you just said, their wife was a whore. And,
Yeah.
it's like, so for example, if I was a gun guy and I did a video, listen, I love a shotgun for home defense. I think a shotgun is the premier home defense tool for people who can't shoot very well. And that's me. So,
Right.
but a shotgun, if I were to get into a fight with a guy with an AK-47 or AR-15 at 300 yards, my shotgun is not really up to the task of fighting the guy at that range with that weapon. Now, if it were martial arts, invariably, there would be some knucklehead that gets on there and goes, you don't know nothing about shotguns. I didn't diss shotguns. All I said was there's a limitation to this weapon.
Right, right,
And
right.
that's the point. I understand the
Well,
limitation of Wing Chun, Jeet Kune Do. They don't go into
that
the ring or cage very well.
right. That well, that's the that is the the argument. What is the
Right.
limitation? Because people
Yeah.
want to say that there's this that the limitation that you're saying is not the limitation.
Right.
My last podcast that I had, I talked with Sensei Ando, and we talked a little bit about hard style versus soft style and all kinds of stuff under the sun. And
Yeah.
I
I
told him
heard it.
about the time that I got taken down to the ground, and it was a point of disagreement. And I don't agree with everybody, on everything, but I
Except
but
me.
I am, huh? Except
Except
you,
me.
yeah. I have more in common with you than a lot of other people. That's for sure. Uh, but I do. There was some point where it's just like, no, I didn't fail the style. The style failed me. I Wing Chun is not good on the ground. It's not. And of course, if somebody came along and said, "Hey, Wing Chun isn't good on the ground. You need to learn ground movement," I would have been okay with that. But what I was told by my instructors, was that Wing Chun's all you need. You don't need anything on the ground because you're going to hit them before they take you to the ground. And yeah, okay, so they're hypothetically that's true, but and maybe it's an anomaly. Maybe like if you look at 20 fights of a Wing Chun guy versus a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy, and out of 20 fights, I was the one that got taken to the ground, then I can say, well, I failed the style. But if
Right.
you look at 20 fights,
Hmm.
and all 20 of them, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy takes them to the ground, and the Wing Chun guy wins one of them, then you know where the anomaly is, right? You know that you have an idea of where the anomaly
You're
is,
using
at
you're using
least.
basic logic though.
Right, right, right. But that's the argument, because my
Yeah.
instructors would have argued, no, you don't need it. Wing Chun is good for the ground, and
Oh.
the analogy, I guess, is going like, somebody's going to argue, no, um, MMA is good for the street, and somebody else might argue. I'm not saying they are, but I'm saying they might argue, no, JKD is good for the cage. And I think that kind of is the conflict. But I don't think that was the point you were making, though. But
No.
yeah,
No, well, the thing was the answer that Jeet Kune Do, there's been a conflating of Jeet Kune Do with MMA in some circles. And that's what I've been responding to. That if you do that, if you say Jeet Kune Do is MMA,
right.
then what is Jeet Kune Do? And why do Jeet Kune Do? So I'm simply pointing out there are significant differences through which one would need to be concerned with. Once more, there is a significant difference between a police officer and a soldier. A
Mm-hmm.
police officer is trying not to kill people, but there are similarities
Right.
between police officers and soldiers. A soldier is generally trying to kill people. That's their
Yeah.
job. Their job is to kill the enemy, break his stuff, and come home. The police officer doesn't want to do that. So
Uh-huh.
I think, the JKD fighter and the MMA fighter, though they're very similar, and the Jeet Kune Do fighter needs to be able to adapt to every range in combat and
Uh-huh.
so forth, according to our JKD principles and theory. But the goal is generally different. The environment's different. I pointed these things out in a video. And so it was a way of separating the two so there's educational clarity.
Right. Right.
It
Right.
wasn't. And again, I think Jeet
And
Kune
we're
Do
not saying
principles
one's
work
better
in
than the other.
MMA.
We're not. I mean, I'm not saying one's better than the
And,
other.
hmm, I've been punched in the face and kicked in the body and kicked in the leg by a variety of different people, styles, and types, and so forth and so on. I have the utmost humility of never underestimate your opponent. I had a Taekwondo dude one time jump in the air and start to spin, and I thought to myself, "The heck does he think he's doing? I'm going to kill him." And right as that thought crossed my mind, I got kicked. So never underestimate your opponent. And was it
Right.
a stupid technique to do? Well, I would suggest it was more stupid for me to stand there and stare at him, thinking it was stupid. But it goes back to my job as I define it, and you may define it, another teacher may define his job differently, but
Right.
I don't have all the answers for somebody. All I'm going to give them are the principles and the best training atmosphere I can
Uh-huh.
that's safe, productive, and logical. And from that, each individual takes those principles and applies them to themselves according to their own pressure testing, their own needs, their own body type. You know, I have had one guy train way back when in the 90s, and he was 275 pounds, former collegiate football player.
Mm-hmm.
And when he first started to spar, he tried to just use his strength and just run forward. And of course, he's running into shots, and he thought, a lot of people thought, I'll try harder. And he ran into shots harder. And then he thought, oh, maybe I need to be evasive. And
Right.
the way he's evasive and the way I'm evasive, because I'm 100 pounds lighter,
Mm-hmm.
we're different. But his job was to get inside, get a hold of people, and use his overwhelming strength. I mean, the guy bench presses 225 pounds, at least at the time. He'd bench press 225 pounds like 30 times. I mean, I don't even know if I could bench the bar 35 times or something like that before I get a pull muscle. But, I mean, he was so
Right.
strong.
Oh, we dropped out
To
here.
help him find his best martial art in his expression.
Okay.
And I think the same thing. Like what you said about Wing Chun. No, Wing Chun doesn't have a ground game. I can extrapolate certain principles to it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe some Wing Chun people are, I don't know, maybe they can. I don't know. But I try to be honest with everybody and let them make their own mind up.
Yeah, right. And one thing I wanted to add to this, and I think it's
Mm-hmm.
something that you did say, is your goal is going to define your training. That is going to define your training.
Perfectly
Your goal
said.
is going to define
I
your
wish I said
training.
that.
And and so in that goal, there are going to be some training that you do that is not applicable going either way. So
Right.
for example, there's, you know, if your goal is MMA, you're going to be doing a lot of cage work. You know what I mean? You're going to be like on the, you know,
Yeah.
on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
crawling up. Like when I go to the MMA school that I go to, like there's a lot of that happens. They'll put you on the ground up against a cage, and they'll have somebody at your legs, and then you've got to, you know, work your way up. I don't, you know, and of course there's always the principle of, well, if I'm pinned against a car or I'm pinned against a fence or something like that, I can work my way up. But that's not something I'm going to normally train. That's for the
Mm-hmm.
cage. That's for that
Right.
situation. And then
Right.
likewise, I'm going to train if my goal is self-defense, I'm going to train
Mm-hmm.
to, you know, maybe talk about, like we talked before, about talking our way out of a fight. You
Yeah.
know, I'm going to train that. I'm going to train
Mm-hmm.
that as part of my. I can't train that, if I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to do MMA. I can't go into the cage, you know, with an MMA fighter and go, oh, hey, I'm looking at your shirt. That's a nice shirt. Or I'm looking at your pants. I got a pair of pants just like that. Now, they look better on you. You know,
Not gonna work.
I'm
Not
not
gonna
going to
work.
train that for that situation,
Yeah.
right? I'm not going to.
Right.
Uh, um,
That'd be fun to watch, though.
right? I'm trying to get out of the fight because, you know, in a self-defense situation, you might try to get, you know, you do best to get
And that's
out
a
of the
win.
fight, right? And that's a
That's a
win.
win.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Well, you know,
go ahead.
I was gonna say that one thing that I think that the martial arts industry is suffering so badly from, and I'm not exonerating MMA people, because there's a lot of MMA folks who think that MMA is a perfect street fighting system. I think that's a little short-sighted as well. But you like my analogies. Here's another one. If you go to a doctor, an optometrist, and you start telling him that you're having really agonizing foot pain, he's not going to try to diagnose you there.
Yeah.
He's going to send you to another specialist. You know, you have general practitioners, and you have different types of medical professionals, different types of legal professionals. And if I ask a person about criminal law, that's different than someone who's in real estate law.
Right. Yeah.
Or bankruptcy law. Not that I've ever talked to anybody in that field, but seriously, but seriously, if you look at martial arts, I think the danger is that we're all insecure, right? And I want to know that, and I'm worried. That's why I try to tell my instructors all the time. If you've got students or you're in front of a class and I put you there, or however you got there, rid of your head, from your head, you gotta expunge from your thinking the notion that you have to impress people. Them.
Right.
Right? I mean, imagine going to a lawyer's office and he starts telling you all the places hey, look at my certificate here, look at my, the lawyer, you're there to talk to the doctor or lawyer. You're assuming they're qualified, you wouldn't be there, and you want to get help. What can you do for me?
Yeah,
And
right,
that's what I'm trying to
exactly.
do as an instructor. And I can't do something for you if I'm not honest with you about what I can't do.
Right,
And
right.
that's the point. I had a kid, Caleb, great kid. Well, he's not so much a kid anymore, but he came to me. He wanted an MMA career, and he wanted me to train him for striking. And I said, well, dude, I'm not an MMA fighter. That's not where my goal is. So you need to get around MMA fighters.
Uh-huh.
Well, Caleb was really loyal young man. He really liked me, and he liked to spar and so forth. And so he's doing a lot of sparring, and I'm going, Caleb, you're learning how to spar me, and I'm a kind of a fleet-footed counterpuncher. You're not going to run into guys like me too much in MMA,
Uh-huh.
So he had a couple of amateur fights, and his success rate was uneven because he wasn't working against other MMA fighters, as you mentioned, in the cage.
Right,
And
right.
so he had to make the change to a full-time MMA training instead of doing a little bit of boxing and Jeet Kune Do with me,
Uh-huh.
And I was trying to do that for him, I'm going to say this, here I am on your podcast. I'm proud of the fact that I'm able to look somebody straight in the face and go, well, I don't know that.
Yeah,
That's not my
right.
expertise. So when I point out a limitation, whether it be Wing Chun, Jeet Kune Do, boxing, MMA, I'm doing the same thing a lawyer or a doctor would do in saying, I don't know anything about criminal law. You don't want me. Remember, Mike
Right.
Tyson went to jail for rape. Part of the reason was because the lawyers defending Tyson were tax attorneys. They were Don King's tax attorneys. They weren't qualified to be defending him in a rape charge. Remember, so their
Right.
expertise was in a separate field. And it's the same thing. If I go to a real estate lawyer and when I'm accused of a crime, I've got myself a problem.
Right.
So I just look at it martial arts like this today. I think that we're all suffering because we have a lot of instructors that are insecure, want people to think we know everything.
Right.
And
Right.
I don't. As much as I know,
Well,
but
I want to
seriously,
I want
just
to
a joke. If you
backtrack.
couldn't see my smile.
Yeah, no, I can see your smile. I think everybody got that
Okay.
you were
Well,
joking.
people listening in a podcast,
I
like,
want to
what a
back
jerk.
I want to backtrack a little bit there because you said something that I kind of want to hone in on, and I
Mhm.
kind of want to get more specific about because um um yeah, okay, so we have to kind of ask ourselves a few questions, a couple of strings there that we got to kind of unravel a little bit. So number one, I do think that MMA is a good self-defense system, could be used on the street fine. And I've
Whew.
talked about this before. I think you've said this, but you said, because you said something about there being limitations. And so I'm wondering if you would clarify for me what you think those are. Now, I look at it like this. I look at it like this, and I've said this before on the podcast, and I think you've heard it before. I think it was one of the first things you ever heard me say, was I view MMA as walking around with like $1 million in your pocket. You can buy most anything with $1 million. Even if somebody comes in and says like, oh, like you're looking at a piece of property and it's like 1.5 million, okay, I could probably, if I had cash, 1 million cash, I could probably get it because
Mhm.
cash talks. We know the saying. So now, does that mean that everything costs $1 million? No, it doesn't mean everything costs $1 million. It just means I can buy most things that I'm going to walking around with $1 million. I mean, I can buy most things.
Right.
Will there be some things that I can't buy? Yeah, there will be. So I look at MMA as kind of like walking around with $1 million. Okay, so for example, let's bring this into a practical situation. Yes, as an MMA fighter, I'm not used to dealing with somebody coming at me with an eye jab or a groin strike. That would be like 1,005,000 or something. But I am used to seeing somebody jabbing at me and somebody trying to kick the inside of my thigh.
Mhm.
So I can it wouldn't be impossible for me to handle that easily, even though that might be something I don't necessarily deal with every day. Now,
Mhm.
of course, there are multiple opponents, there's weapons, there's things. Those are things that are like $2 million, $3 million that I couldn't buy with my $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So what would you say about that analogy, and what would you say in general about like what you, because you said there are some limitations to MMA
Well,
and
I would say I like the analogy, and I'll just try to build on that. The money you have in your account is going to be your attributes because you've been training hard. You're in good shape, right?
yeah.
You've got good endurance. You've been striking things, and you've had things coming back at you. Those are all qualities that in any fighting environment, which is why I take my Wing Chun program and Jeet Kune Do program, and I offer at my school a boxing program with it,
Uh,
so people can get used to seeing punches coming at them. And I look at it like a doctor, and I'm going, okay, you're coming to me with a problem. I want to know if you have any allergies. I don't want to give you something and have
yeah.
that something cause another problem, right?
Right. Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
so what's the problem most people have? They've never had somebody try to punch them in the face a lot or
Hmm.
take them down and slam them down and hit them. So what's the best way to get training for that safely and legally? Boxing and some type of hybrid wrestling, MMA, right? I
Right.
would agree.
Right.
I don't, and so I'm always open to suggestions. How can I get my people ready? As you said, you have $1 million because you're used to people punching at you and trying to take you down.
Hmm.
Great, and you're probably in shape and you're used to hitting things. Good. Are there limitations to that? Absolutely. Here's first and foremost the training of a Muay Thai fighter, an MMA fighter, a boxer. A lot of rigor to it and potential injury. MMA
Hmm.
especially because of a number of disciplines that an MMA fighter has to master and engage in, the chances
Hmm.
for injury skyrocket. It's like CrossFit for martial arts. You can get in great shape, but the downside is you could I've seen guys with dislocated elbows,
Yeah. Yeah.
all sorts of horrific injuries that you're not going to get from the Wing Chun. You have to
Uh-huh.
balance these things out, and I think that so that part of it is that okay, I have these qualities, I have this $1 million, well, but what liabilities did I incur to get that $1 million?
Uh-huh.
Is that $1 million? If I have that $1 million, and I would say you have $1 million, but the thing that you need is priced in francs, and you
Right.
have to cash in the money and
Right.
what's the word I'm looking for? Cash in the money. You've got
Trade it in.
to,
Trade it in.
yeah. So it may not be in the
Exchange.
currency you need to trade, right? Exchange, and that's the case with like multiple opponents. Several examples I can tell you. One guy, a great wrestler I trained with a while back, he took a guy down. And reflex under stress, you're not going to rise to the level of your occasion. You're going to sink to the level of your discipline.
Right.
And Tony Massengill says that really well. He shoots in and he puts his knee down on cement, blew his patella apart. I know. I mean, boxers, I have a video called Beware the Glove. Boxers
Yeah.
always, I mean, you've got plenty of videos, people landing right hands and hooks and knocking guys out. But what great danger is there in boxing? Because of the way they punch with the glove. So the vertical
This.
fist does not
Uh-huh.
work very well if you're in MMA or boxing because of the way the glove is made today. The glove
Right.
protects actually the finger knuckles, but bare knuckle,
Uh-huh.
I'm not telling you something that's never been done before. The bare
Right.
knuckle time, they fought vertical fist because the number one injury was to the hand, not just from me punching wrong, but also if I had my hands up, if
Yeah.
somebody punches my hands, it could break my hand, cut me.
Right. Right.
So my point is, yeah, you have to be aware of the limitations. Last thing, there's a fight I saw in New York a long while ago, back in 1991, and this guy put the other guy down, and he was just beating the tar out of him. The guy that
Hmm.
was down in full desperation just did this. He just sort of threw his hand up, and his thumb was extended. If you're listening to this, not watching it, and his thumb was
Yeah.
extended and caught the other guy in the eye purely by accident. So it was an eye gouge purely by accident.
Hmm.
So that's my point: is that we endeavor to know the strengths and weaknesses of
Right.
everything we're doing,
Yes. And everything
and
has
that's the best you
strengths and
can do.
weaknesses. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Right.
so you
But
can.
here's the other thing too that I kind of wanted to plug into this. So that was one of them that I kind of wanted to dwell upon is I really do believe that MMA, although it's designed for the cage,
Mhm.
if I'm an MMA fighter and I get out of my car and I'm walking to the ATM and somebody accosts me, let's say they don't have a knife or something like that, or they say they have a knife, or they, whatever, or they push me or something like that. I think that the MMA fighter, I would lay money on the MMA fighter for the most part. Okay, just
I have no problem with that. Yeah.
yeah. The other thing is then we have to ask our question. What's MMA? MMA has become something. It's not a unified art. It is several arts that have been pieced together that people have worked in together that they think works best in an octagon in a cage.
Mm-hmm.
My personal belief is that, okay, so first of all, we first did MMA and it was all ground game. They realized real quickly, if you don't have a ground game, you're not going to survive. Well, then they started getting good at stand-up. And they started doing this and say, oh, okay, well, if I don't have a stand-up game, I'm not going to survive it just being a ground game. It evolved.
Right.
I truly believe that JKD, of course, you'd have to modify it because we're not going to be able to throw eye jabs and groin strikes. I think that JKD, and this is also from personal experiencing, fighting with and sparring with many people who have done full contact sparring and getting their feedback on it. JKD can translate into a cage match and do fairly well. That's my opinion. I think that if things kind of were written a little bit differently, if we had gotten, there wasn't like a lot of JKD people at the beginning of MMA or wanted to join MMA or something like that. But I have used the straight lead. I have used the chain punching. I've used, and then of course there's all kinds of stuff that cross over, like the hook kick and things like that. I think JKD, if trained properly, of course there are some things like we've talked about before. If I'm on the street, I don't care if I and if I feel threatened, yeah, I'm gonna try to go for that eye. Legal question aside, I can't train that. But I can train the jab. I can train, that lead hand, staying behind that lead hand and that lead foot. And I think that could do well in a cage match. I don't think we should say, well, JKD's too deadly for the cage or something like that. You know what I mean? So what say you? What do you think of that idea?
That's no, I agree with that. I don't think there's anything irrational or contradictory in what you said. Okay. Go back to the whole, here we are, two virgins discussing sex ed again. And I don't know how to answer the question for everyone out there because I'm not everyone out there. And at different phases of life and different value systems and different time commitments and how much somebody's willing to train, I mean, here I am, I'm 48 years old. My body's changed and my temperaments changed. I mean, when I was in my 20s, man, if there was a guy in the gym and I thought I could beat him.
You don't look a day over 47.
I mean, bless you. Right. So I work not to look over what is happening. One of the guys at my birthday was a couple of months ago, and one of the young guys in the gym said, "Man," and he thinks he's complimenting me. "Man, I've never seen a guy your age move like that." And I'm like,
"Whoa,
I'm not that old, dude." But he's dead now. I'm kidding. So
you killed him. Right? You're like, you're about to see me move. I'm sorry, I threw you off there, but I was loving it.
But threw me off. But you get some people and everyone's got to make that decision. They've got to cross that bridge themselves, and you got to know what you can and you can't do. And I still think it goes back to JKD can work in a cage, and you have to be aware of what you're training, and you have to try to make the student cognizant of their own strengths and weaknesses. I'm gonna try to say this more succinctly, and that is, if you're training and you think your art will fight for you, you're mistaken. You will fight for you. And it doesn't matter what I can do with Jeet Kune Do or MMA or what have you. It matters what you can do with it. And each person has different strengths and weaknesses. There are principles that apply to all of us. If you're easy to hit, you're going to have a problem. You know, you've got to be evasive one way or the other. However it is that you do it, you need to be
Uh-huh.
evasive for you. You know, I could say that I'm really good in the boxing ring, covering with my gloves. I try to tell guys all the time, don't use your gloves for defense. Use them as a first aid kit.
Hmm.
You know, if you get punched in the shin or put your glove up, put your glove up. But make sure you're rolling, you're slipping, you're stepping. You're not standing there blocking, because that's going to make it easier for guys to catch you with bare fists and to take you down.
Hmm.
So I got guys that are like, okay, cool. And you're trying to make guys aware of what they can and can't do. I'm aware of what you said about the eye jab. And when I spar, I try to catch people quick with short jabs, pop them in the nose, pop them in the nose, pop
Uh-huh.
them as long as I can, because I'm aiming for that accuracy. I'm aiming for that movement so I can catch that line. And so
Right.
cognizant of not just the strengths and weaknesses of what you're training, the pros and
Right.
cons, but yourself too, right?
Hmm.
Are you Marvis Frazier trying to fight like Joe Frazier, your father? You know, Joe
Right.
Frazier had a forward style. He'd take 2 or 3 to give a big left hook. That worked for Joe because he had a big left hook until he ran into Foreman.
Uh-huh.
Well, Marvis Frazier didn't have a big left hook. That style was kryptonite to him. And every style has a kryptonite. There is no ultimate system. You know, I still
Right.
think Wing Chun works really, really well in if I'm coming down a stairwell. And
Yeah.
I'm telling you, if you're in a style, so well, let's look at brass tacks here. If I'm coming down a stairwell, cement steps, hard objects everywhere around me, and I've trained in Wing Chun, and we can get into what real Wing Chun is some other time. But I like that fighter in that environment more than I like a boxer or MMA guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
If all else is
Because
equal,
you have to
because
make contact. You have to make
go ahead.
contact.
Yeah, or
And I will say this too.
mhm,
For all the people think that I bash on Wing Chun a lot, and in one sense I do. But I will say this: for if you connect with somebody and you track them, you
mhm,
don't let them get away from you. You don't stay in your Frankenstein stance. You actually jump in and you track them.
mhm,
You're using you're following them. Wing Chun's some
mhm.
of the best stuff I've ever used in a fight.
Yeah, and I still think that Wing Chun is it's not working for a lot of people because they've misidentified. It's a square peg round hole problem. You're looking at a system that's designed to counterattack a charge
Right.
in close range.
Uh-huh.
If you got a boxer who's staying long, the Wing Chun fighter really ought to go, well, this is more of a match. I can run away.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't need to stay here and fight. You know, if you come to me, then I have a
Or
fight.
if
So it's
you
the way they
force
define a fight.
contact, you got to force the
Yeah.
contact.
And so now I can use the angles I think that Wing Chun uses. But if you put Wing Chun into a cage or a boxing ring, I think it's poorly equipped because it's like telling me that my Toyota Tundra sucks as a means of transportation because I can't use it in the ocean.
Right. Right. Right.
No, my truck is fine on the highway.
Right.
Now, if there's a flood, I need a boat again. So it's just a question of being able to see what the system is made for and being honest enough to go, one, I don't know that. If I don't know, I don't know. Number two, that probably isn't the best environment to use that weapon or tool.
Right. Right. Right.
Right? I don't want to fire I don't want to get into a firefight at 300 yards with my shotgun against a long rifle.
Right.
That weapon, or let's go back something more recent memory. The Las Vegas shooting,
Uh-huh.
right? That guy's shooting with a long gun down how many stories? 15, 20 stories, I forget. It
Mhm.
at like a couple hundred yards. Now let's say I'm in that crowd and I have my Glock 9mm, right? So I got one
Right.
guy shooting at me. I'm in a gunfight, right?
Right. Right.
It's dark. I'm not sure where the fire is coming. Maybe I get the muzzle flash. So I take out my Glock and I'm thinking I'm going to fire at this guy. Bang, bang, bang. I'm liable to shoot anybody. I don't think the bullet, my 9mm is not going to make it
No.
15, 20 stories up, a
You
couple hundred
you
yards.
might kill
So
somebody else. Yeah. Somebody.
yes, yes. Did I just say my Glock 9mm sucks? Just
No.
simply said in that environment that I have to know the limitations of the weapon I have and
Uh-huh.
the environment I'm in. And that's what a martial
Right.
artist needs to do. We've got to get out of the cage, out of the ring, and remember that combat is going to be fluid. I agree with you that the boxer, MMA fighter is going to be more adaptable in a real combat environment because people are throwing punches at you. or
And
trying
you're
to
used to
grab you.
seeing punches at you, yeah, every
Right.
day.
And so they have
Right.
that capital in their account. They got cash in their pocket, completely agree. However, you don't want to be overly confident.
Hmm.
You don't want to go, well, I have this and I don't, so therefore I'm always going to prevail.
Right.
Well, any number of things could go awry. Like I
Hmm.
said, I know some guys that are shooters, some friends of mine, they're big gun guys, and they're bragging to me about how far they can shoot. Man, I'm out. I'm like, you're shooting at 100 yards. Yeah. Can you explain to me an environment, with the exception of a zombie apocalypse, where you're shooting at somebody as a civilian at 100 yards away? Can you explain to me how you're going to tell a cop, yeah, okay, so I was coming out of the Braves game, right? I was coming out of the Braves game, and
Right.
we beat the crap out of the Mets 6-0. And there was a Mets family coming out, and they were in a bad mood, and they looked a little dodgy in the head. So I wasn't taking no chances, officer. So bang, bang, bang! I put 3 headshots on them. The father, the wife, and the kid. Of course, I missed the kid and hit the old lady behind him, but she was old. The officer goes,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. Probably saved everybody on medical expenses. Good shot, sir. Why would I ever fight? I'm
Yeah.
going to fire because I have an imminent threat. And
Right. Right.
so, that's the thing for a martial artist to be thinking of. And I know we get into, as soon as I say, this is what MMA does real well, and this is what it doesn't do well,
Hmm.
or this is what is left out of your more sport-based training. So you need to be aware of this. And there are going to be people who are going to get ticked off and go, oh, you angered me. You've just MMA. I've simply said
Yeah.
again that tool that you've developed has a
Right.
specific place where it's optimal use.
Hmm.
That's it. And so it's
Right.
up to you. It's
So let
incumbent
me
upon
ask
you
you.
to figure that out.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you a couple of
Mhm.
questions that I kind of wanted to go over as far as the video was concerned. And that
Mhm.
was, is there any place that you feel like, not just a disagreement, but like you felt like he didn't, like when he was giving a response to the video, that you felt like he didn't understand what your point? Like, was there a point in there where it was less like he didn't really understand what I was getting at? I wish was there
Yeah,
anything
that's
like
it.
that?
I think his critique was fundamentally. I agree with you that he and I would agree quite a bit. I think that he mischaracterized the nature of my video, where it was simply a quest to differentiate educationally what the
Uh,
two systems should be looking ultimately to achieve, not to say one system is better than another.
right, right. I think that's what he was thinking. I think he was thinking that you
Mhm.
were bagging on
No,
MMA, and I don't think that at all. It was just like, no, that's
no,
not the case. I know Jason. We've talked
no,
a
and
lot.
he
Yeah,
And he did. He said, that makes sense. I mean, I think if I recall correctly, because you're right, that was like ancient history, right? he,
right.
he
10 days
said
ago, I
it was
think.
a couple of weeks ago, man. I think
Yeah,
he was even saying, yeah, that makes sense. I have no problem with that, and so forth. I do remember the case with the aggression, and I'll go back to that of going, let's walk through what a fight is and
yeah.
what type of environment, and I've been criticized here locally because I did some things where I was saying that I don't like teaching gun defense. And because I think Krav Maga is insane for showing people spending a lot of time on how to take a gun away from you, from somebody. And I'm going, wait a minute, what kind of environment are you in that you have a gun to your head? I mean,
Yeah.
at best, when I pressure tested this stuff, 50-50 before the guy could use a squirt gun or like pot or goes, um, I'm not that dumb. I don't use a live weapon, but,
50-50.
so,
Yeah, right. A
but
fifty
seriously,
fifty. Yeah, I can't tell you.
50-50. I mean, that's under optimal training conditions where I've got a student going, as soon as you see me move, man, try to fire. So I'm
Yeah,
50-50. And so I'm like, if somebody walks up to me and goes, hey, give me all your money, give me all your money, he's got a gun to my head, I'm going, first of all, I try to avoid places where people might put guns to my head.
right, right.
I'm not cheating with a Navy SEAL sniper's wife. I don't draw
Uh-huh.
pictures of the Prophet Muhammad for local newspapers. I don't have a meth lab in my house. So I don't steal money from the Russian mob. I don't
Right.
kill John Wick's dog.
Yeah.
There are certain things I don't do because
Right.
now I've got serious opposition coming after me. You
Right.
know, that being said, if I'm not saying Krav Maga sucks. I'm just simply saying, look at the situation you're thinking of.
Yeah.
I would, if somebody comes up to me and says, "Give me all your money," and I have $100 in my pocket, I'm betting now, I'm gambling $100 that I can take that gun away from you before you put a hole in my noggin that God didn't give me.
Yeah.
You know, it
Right.
ain't worth $100 for me. I'll just give you the $100.
Yeah.
Plus, most of my credit cards are maxed out. Who cares? Here's my credit card.
Yeah. And you don't have a meth lab in your house. You keep that in your storage shed.
No,
Right.
I mean, so if he wanted to shoot me, he would have already shot me. Right. Exactly. So I don't need to get into that fight. And I just think that's contextually a something that just jumps out at me of why am I in this type of confrontation? Right? Like I was saying about the gun.
Right.
Why am I shooting 100? I mean, I don't have a problem with you shooting Mets fans.
Right.
But some of them need to be put out of their misery.
No, I said meth lab.
Mets.
Sorry.
Yeah, meth labs. Yeah. No, yeah. My previous one with them.
You said you didn't have a meth lab in your
I don't have a meth
house.
Lab. Yes.
Not in
I
your
don't have
house.
A meth lab. My house.
You have it at your garage.
Breaking Bad here. Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's what my interest is. I know if you're into Jeet Kune Do to the point where whatever Bruce Lee did, and you sit around and you're 40 years old and you've got no kids or family and you forget to feed the dog because you're sitting in your yellow tracksuit commenting on Bruce Lee videos. I don't consider you a martial artist. I consider you a fan.
Right.
And my stuff, Cornerstone, JKD, Greenville Academy of Martial Arts, it's a martial arts thing, trying to help people protect themselves. And I'm not saying I got all the answers. I'm just simply saying, all right, here's what we know. This is what we know. And this is here's the elements of the unknown. And I agree with you. If you're in great shape,
there's certain things that I've brought to the table in sparring with MMA fighters that have been very useful. And unfortunately, everybody starts to defend their style. It's crazy. It's crazy how quick that happens. Instead of the seeking for truth, everybody starts defending their style. So suddenly, Wing Chun sucks and has nothing to offer. And I'm like, I bring some stuff to the table, and I'm like, look, you can't say that because it has something to offer. I'll tell you a couple things that have served me well in the limited cage fighting that I've done, or helping them spar with them as my friends prepare for full contact matches. Number one is the straight lead. The straight lead, in my opinion, works better to me than a jab, and I landed a lot. And the reason I landed a lot is because it comes under the line. It comes under the line of the eye. Right. They don't see it.
Yep.
And I hit people with that a lot. That's one thing that MMA, if they were open-minded, could learn. The other thing is just the sows, not necessarily chi sao. But I'll be honest, you can look at my videos. You can look at the videos that I have of me sparring with MMA fighters. I have fast hands. Good luck landing a punch on me. You can. People do. But I'll tell you what, it's kind of hard. And it's hard because of the Wing Chun. It's hard because I train Pak Sao and Lop Sao and, a reverse Pak Sao and what other Saos am I thinking of? Anyway, Pak Sao mostly, like a modified Ton Sao. Yeah, not so much a human Sao, but because I practice those things, Gong, Pak Sao, Gong Sao, and Yu Sao basically are like the three most ones that I do, and kind of a modified Bong, and I do a reverse Pak Sao, which is basically flapping the hand backwards instead of forward. And because of that, people they've commented. I've got people who have gone into the ring who have done full contact competition, come and spar with me, and they say to me, it's hard to land a strike on you. I'm like, I know, because I train my hands like crazy because I don't want to get hit.
That's the goal, not to get hit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amen, man.
There's no wrong way to not get hit either, by the way. It's like I was training this guy. He's an MMA guy, and this is just recent. This was like a couple of days ago. It's at a different school, and I went in and I sparred with him, and and we were showing him just like the Pak Da kind of a thing, and he didn't do it right, and he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry," and I'm like, "Dude, there's no wrong way to not get hit. You still didn't get hit. Yeah, it's not may not be the one we're working on right now.
I like that.
There's no, if you don't get hit, that's the best defense right there." It's like, no, you have to do my forearm outward block, and if you don't do the forearm outward block, then you didn't do it right.
Yeah, and I'll say this is
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I see it too, and I get a whiff of this, given my Christian tendencies and presuppositions, that there's idolatry in it. That I try to tell people, listen, I'm a fan of Wang Chunliang. Bruce Lee has been a huge influence to me. Simplicity, his application philosophies, they've helped me become a better person, a better business owner, so forth and so on. But Bruce Lee died, he stayed dead. Wang Chunliang died, he stayed dead. They're all dead. These systems and these ideas either help me cross the bridge, they help me to get where I'm going, or they don't. And it's incumbent upon me to do the thinking. I'm not a follower of Wang Chunliang or Wing Chun or Jeet Kune Do or whatever. I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. And so, and unless you say something, unless you come back from the dead, everything you say to me, I'm going to
you're going to question.
And see and so that's the point where I think you've got a lot of idolatry in it going, this is the way Wing Chun does it. I hear it all the time. Wing Chun does this. And I'm going, what do you mean you can't use it someplace else? I mean, I'll tell you what, I've always used section 4 of the wooden dummy to catch shots coming in at my line. And when I was boxing, I did it quite a bit when I'd get in trouble.
Yeah.
Guys some quick shots, and I'd be able to get my hands up, and that's Wing Chun. And I box. I still teach boxing, and I use a lot of Wing Chun elements and Jeet Kune Do elements in my boxing, and it's been worked very well for me. But again, that's me, and I try not to tell people, "Hey, this is what I do," because
one thing you said
I think I'm awesome.
Right.
You don't need to be me. You need to be you. Go ahead.
Right. Well, one thing that you said last time on the program you were with me, it was a really good thing, and that was the person who has a style has to worry about two things: being faithful to their style and winning the fight. Or somebody who's winning the fight doesn't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
The problem now is that, in my opinion, MMA has also become a style. And as soon as it becomes a style, it's like, this is how we do it in MMA.
Exactly.
And that's happening where it didn't used to be that. It used to be like, well, what about just using what works?
Right.
And, that sounds like JKD, using what works. So, we don't practice a sow here because this is MMA. I was like, yeah, but sows work. They work really good. And I can show you, get me in the ring with that guy and have him try to throw a shot at me. And I'll pluck almost every one of them out of the air.
Right.
Anyway, it has become a style. It is becoming kind of solidified. It might be a good style, though. It might be the best style, but it's still becoming a style in which people then they put up their hands, their hands.
Yeah.
And say, well, this is where it is. This is the border. We're not going to do anything.
Right.
So, final question. Not final, but we can rag on for a little bit. One more question I really wanted to make sure that I asked you, and that is there if there was something you wanted to say to Taylor, is there something? Was there like a message? Like if you could sit down and say, hey, look, this is. Is there something that you would like to say to him?
Like his channel. Good channel, good stuff. I like how Frankie's been with his journey, of saying, this is where I was, and it was difficult to apply the things I was learning under pressure, and so I've made these changes, and I applaud him for that. At the same time, I think it's incumbent upon all of us. He has a platform. You have a platform. I have a platform. To remind people that it's important to be objective and keep looking for whatever, like you said, I can't do that. This is right. That's that line where I'm always worried about it. I love Bruce's concept of, obey the principle without being bound by it. And I think that means that his contacts, all his contacts. So yeah, no, I like his channel. I thought he did a great job, a fair job. I certainly there was no animosity.
Right.
You know me. If you guys have listened to me before, I love a good robust debate, and
Yeah.
you
Right.
can call me a number of things. I have no
Somebody's really
problem with
trying to
that.
get a hold of you. Yeah. Call you a number
but
of things.
but
And
I agree with you completely, unequivocally. There is no ultimate thing because it
yeah.
still has to be applied in context. So the minute you say, "Okay, I got this," and change that idea, like I met David Peterson, Wang Qingliang instructor,
Yeah.
um, about 3 or 4 years ago. I loved his Wing Chun. And Sifu David, Wang Qingliang, it was wonderful to work with him.
Hmm.
He's had a unique experience where he's a Wang Qingliang student, and he is he's Australian,
Uh-huh.
he's Chinese, so he's able to learn it, and then when he learned it in Cantonese from his
Hmm.
Sifu Wang Qingliang, and then he's able to teach you concepts in English, which are pretty
Hmm.
cool, right? Pretty cool. So, because I think sometimes things get lost in translation, and I love the way he brought some simple things to it, to his Wing Chun, and that changed the way I think of Wing Chun.
Mm.
And that's not to say that Wang Xingliang Wing Chun is everything.
Right.
Or if I could say, oh, I think Sifu David had a mistake here, and so therefore his stuff sucks. That's what I think we have a tendency to do. We have a tendency to make something either ultimate or crap.
Uh-huh.
And it should be taken in that regard of, are the principles true principles so that I can make them reflexive, and can I be adaptable?
Right.
And so I know I went off based on what your question was, but Taylor, great channel. I like what he's doing. And I would just say in my own defense of my response to my video was simply to say the differentiation educationally between the systems,
Right. Right.
because each system is an answer to a specific problem,
Right. Yes,
So that
for
right.
sure.
And
Yeah.
if you don't know the context, like, okay, if I see a video of Navy SEALs running down the beach with a log on their shoulder,
Uh-huh.
going, those idiot SEALs, they think you're gonna hit people with a log in a war. No, I know what they're doing that for. You're laughing because you know what they're doing it for.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing about, trying to get the full context of something and not muddying the waters.
Right. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Well, I think that there's one thing that I think there was something he misunderstood about it, and I could be
Mm-hmm.
wrong. So Taylor, if you
Mm-hmm.
listen, I could be wrong about this, but I think that one of the misunderstandings was that you were trying to bag on MMA, or say that it wasn't good or it couldn't be street applicable. And I don't think you were saying that. And the other thing was that I wish it would have happened is I wish you would have watched the whole thing. I wish you would have watched your whole video,
Mm-hmm.
because in the end you made the analogy between the difference between a police officer and a firefighter. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
not the same thing. It's the difference between a police officer and a firefighter. So that's going to be a wrap today. That's going to be a wrap. I
I'm
actually,
good. I'm good.
uh,
So
all right.
we should
No.
spar through Google Hangout. That
Oh,
way it's safer, and I don't get hit. I like
I'd
that.
win. I'd win it. I'd win every one of them. I'd win them all. I'd,
You could just disconnect, right? I'll knock you out.
I just, well, no, even if I lost, I could just say I won.
Hey, hey, that's what people do on YouTube. I
I
would beat the
know.
crap out of you.
I would be like, well, that didn't,
Somebody
no.
commented on one of my videos and told me they beat the crap. And I thought,
Oh,
man,
gosh.
what do I owe you, money? What did
I
I
don't
do?
know.
Anyway,
People get too excited about that kind of stuff. I was like, okay, just calm down. All right, before we go, everybody out
seriously,
there, I just want to remind everybody to buy my book, Diet Sins. And I believe somebody owes me
yep.
dinner. That somebody's you, Jason. We had a little race, remember? Who was going to get whose book out first? I don't know if you remember that or not, but I got my book out first. So
I have a bad connection. I lost you, dude. I lost you. What? Are we talking about a book?
Yeah. I think it's on the YouTube channel. So
I'm gonna go on. I'm gonna go online. I'm gonna go online, and I'm gonna bad mouth your book.
oh no, that's gonna be horrible. It's gonna be horrible.
All right.
If you're a
All right,
martial
man.
artist, all right, man. We'll see you. Hey, take care.
All
Thanks
right.
for being on the
Have a
show.
good one,
Short.
bud.
Thank you so much for doing this. I know it was short notice, and
Absolutely.
I'm glad you were able to get on the show. Next time we'll have
All
to
right,
have
delight.
Taylor on, and maybe we can get the two of you together sometime.
I'll,
All right,
I'll
man.
challenge
We'll
him.
see
I'll
you.
challenge him to a jab contest. All right. All
Okay.
right. You can't.